agenda additions, and that brings us to public comments. We have received a number of public comments and also had the public comments that were asked by the full commission to be the remainder of the ones that were on resolution 51 that were asked to be read during this meeting.
Right. Mr. Clerk, would you read us those comments, please?
Yes. Would you like to start with the new comments or the previous comments? Or do you
I think we
care?
should. All the comments that we've heard before, we won't hear in the meeting today.
Correct.
So whichever, I guess, just in order of receipt, I suppose, and then we want to hear from our visitors.
Okay, so I'll start with the comments that were received for our last regular session meeting, and then I'll indicate when the newer comments start. The first comment comes from Ashley McConnell, who writes, "Please vote no on resolution 51, Shreveport citizen and native here." On the second one is Catherine Jacobs, who writes, "Vote no on resolution 51, no drilling around Cross Lake." Allison Hodges writes, "Please vote no on resolution 51. We do not need to damage our local ecosystems for oil." Brynja Faith writes, "Vote no on resolution 51. I am concerned about more oil and gas extraction so close to the lake that provides our drinking water. I'm very scared and concerned." The next comment comes from Kimberly Talley, who writes, "Protect our land and especially our drinking water. Surely there are better ways for the parish to bring in revenue than leasing, among other things, our water source and putting it at risk for spills and damage we've seen happen in other areas. Vote no on resolution 51. Emily Hammond writes, "Hello, I'm aware that the Caddo Commission will be voting on selling off the rights to drill for oil and gas on parish land in the sections in blue, some of which are right on Cross Lake, our drinking water source. Please vote no on resolution 51. The next comment is from Ms. Annie Williams, who writes, "Good morning. I'm a resident of Stone Lake subdivision and over 40-year resident of Caddo Parish. I'm asking for a vote of no on resolution 51. Please do not allow oil and gas drilling on parish properties, especially Cross Lake, our primary water supply. Registered voter respectfully submitted." The next comment comes from Charles Campbell, who writes, "My name is Charles Campbell, and I am writing to express my harsh disapproval and disappointment that y'all are considering selling stolen land. This not only affects lower income neighborhoods negatively, but it also pollutes the environment. If you want this land to still be livable in the future, you need to think about your actions and how they will affect the community and planet." The next comment comes from Jennifer Courtney, who writes, "Dear Commissioners, please oppose the Bureau of Land Management oil and gas lease on federal minerals around Cross Lake. We cannot afford to take a chance on damaging or polluting our water source. It sure seems a lot like biting the hand that feeds you. I understand that the revenue is important to our parish, but the health of its citizens is priceless. Please do not allow the Bureau of Land Management to proceed with this deal." Adrian Critcher writes, "My husband Bobby and I want to express our strong opposition to resolution 51, which would sell off the rights to drill for oil and gas on parish land, some of which is right on Cross Lake, our drinking water source. We strongly oppose any action that could jeopardize and contaminate our drinking water." I've also copied Commissioner John Paul Young to ask him to vote against resolution 51. Kind regards, Adrian. The next comment comes from Libby Mangum, who writes, "As a resident of Cross Lake, I want the Caddo Commission to know my opinion. On Thursday, vote no on selling off the rights to drill for oil and gas on parish land in the sections which are right on Cross Lake, our drinking water source. I'm respectfully requesting that the Commission vote no on resolution 51. Sincerely, Elizabeth Libby Mangum." And then Raman D. Green writes, "I urge you to vote no on resolution 51. Having a safe source of water is an essential to having a decent living environment. We've already seen what companies are capable of in reference to the bottom line. And I am a firm believer in the notion that money means very little in the face of contamination and/or operations disasters. Despite the need for funds in the parish, the risk is too great to sell off the drilling rights. We must protect those things that are required for life. We must not fail ourselves or our children. Please vote against resolution 51. The next comment comes from Aaron Berry, who writes, "Caddo Commission, please save our drinking water in the midst of a larger global pandemic. The last thing we need to do is foul up our local source of drinking water and security. I'm emailing all of you. John Paul Young is my elected representative, but issues like this transcend borders. We are all affected and we all need your help. On Thursday, July 9th, 2020, please vote no on Resolution 51, which, if passed, would open portions of Caddo Parish, including some areas within Cross Lake, to leasing for oil and gas exploration and extraction. Cross Lake is the primary source of potable water to thousands of households, businesses, and institutions in the greater Shreveport area. Maximally protecting this natural resource is critical to the health and well-being of the citizens of Caddo Parish and beyond. Oil and gas exploratory and extractive practices are inherently damaging to the environment, involving but not limited to land use alterations, intrusive infrastructure, and the introduction of polluting and potentially harmful toxic compounds and substances which impact all three critical environmental matrices, namely soil, air, and water. With the current downturn in the oil and gas industry worldwide, due not only to limitations of storage capacity in an already glutted market, but also a marked downturn in consumer demand, there is no need to increase the footprint of such a potentially hazardous industry any further on the Northwest Louisiana region. The next comment was received from multiple people, and Renee Dossett, Maureen Murov, Jennifer Russell, and Sarah Hare all submitted the following comment. On Thursday, July 9th, 2020, please vote no on Resolution 51, which, if passed, would open portions of Caddo Parish, including areas within Cross Lake, to leasing for oil and gas exploration and extraction. Cross Lake is the primary source of potable drinking water to thousands of households, businesses, and institutions. Maximally protecting this. So this is very similar to the previous comment, but with some alterations. Oil and gas exploratory and extractive practices are inherently damaging to the environment, involving but not limited to land use alteration, intrusive infrastructure, and the introduction of polluting and potentially harmful toxic compounds and substances. With the current downturn in the oil and gas industry worldwide, due not only to limitations of storage, but also marked downturn in consumer demand, there's no need to increase the footprint of such a potentially hazardous industry any further upon Northwest Louisiana region. Now, Sarah Hare also adds to that, in the same vein, the only way our economy can credibly recover is if we all step up and prioritize public safety. I applaud that Shreveport has instituted a mask requirement and would appreciate consideration of the implementation of similar requirement throughout Caddo Parish that is on your agenda today. And then in the next comment comes from Chris J., who writes, I am writing you to urge you to consider a no vote on Resolution 51, which entails selling drilling rights to Pine Island area of Cross Lake. Cross Lake is where we get our drinking water. We cannot afford to risk it. Shreveport and Caddo Parish face plenty of enormous challenges already. Finding a new source of potable water would be one too many. Also, with oil and gas prices in the toilet as they have been for so long now, do we really stand to gain that much from royalties? Unlike lots of folks you're probably hearing from, I am not anti-oil and gas. I am anti this project, which is just too big of a gamble. And if it were to go wrong, could deal the city a blow that may not be able to recover from. We can, through grit and determination, rebuild from a GM plant leaving, a major annual event going belly up, or a global pandemic decimating our economy. We cannot rebuild from having clean water to drink. Please vote no on Resolution 51. Thank you, Chris J. And then the next comment comes from Sophia Nicole, who writes, I implore you to vote to stop the lease which allows oil and gas extractions on parish-owned land. The risk is too great, especially with some of the land so close to Cross Lake. The lake's the primary source of drinking water for the denizens of Shreveport, Louisiana. There's a risk of an accident occurring while extractions, which could ultimately lead to contamination in the nearby waters. Not only is this a risk for the environment and the wildlife in this area, but it poses a major risk to humans if they were to consume the polluted water. These health issues can be grouped into respiratory damage, liver damage, decreased immunity, reproductive damage, and increased cancer risk. I must remind you that we are currently facing a worldwide pandemic in which the virus also causes respiratory problems and damage, and the risk is too great not only for the people of Shreveport, but also to local hospitals. As the daughter of a health professional, I understand that COVID cases in Shreveport are rising, and the resources and space in hospitals can only go for so long. The oil and gas extraction poses a risk to the 184,000 Shreveport citizens that could not be avoided. Thank you for your time. I hope you consider this a serious matter. Sophia Nicole. The next comment comes from Jade Kerouac, who writes, my name is Jade Kerouac. I'm writing to express my opposition to the Federal Bureau of Land Management's proposed oil and gas lease sale beneath Cross Lake's northern, southern, and western shores. Cross Lake is Shreveport's drinking water source, and development of these leases could pollute that water. I'm asking you to vote no on Resolution 51. This plan poses significant threats to Shreveport's drinking water supply and should be canceled. The parcels proposed for oil and gas lease are located on the shores of Cross Lake. Any spill or well blowout could do significant harm to Shreveport's drinking water. This is simply not a risk worth taking. Clean drinking water is something people all over the world fight to have access to. Cities in this country are still fighting that fight, but Shreveport doesn't have to be fighting that fight unnecessarily. By voting no on Resolution 51, you can help your community stave off that fight. I do not feel that the Bureau has thoroughly analyzed the potential impacts to dam safety and other geological hazards that could result from induced seismicity triggered by oil and gas development and wastewater injection on the leased parcels. Frankly, these risks are significantly controversial. If the Bureau does not cancel this plan outright, it should at least undertake a full environmental impact statement to fully analyze, disclose, and mitigate potential impacts to the environment and our community. Please vote no on Resolution 51 and allow more time to notify the public and local governments about its plan and meet its public notice requirements under the National Environmental Policy Act. Similarly, 12 days is not enough time for the public to evaluate and provide meaningful comment on the Bureau's plan. The sale seems hushed, shady, and uncaring towards the community concerns me. I urge you to vote no on Resolution 51 to allow more information to be presented to our community before putting its main source of drinking water in jeopardy. That concludes the comments that were submitted for the July 9th meeting.
Excellent. Are there more comments that have been submitted for this meeting?
There are two more, and then I believe the petition that was submitted to all the members already. So
Okay,
I won't
great.
read the petition, but I'll read these two brief comments.
Okay, thank you.
One was received from Will Fox, who writes, oil and gas does not belong in Shreveport's economy, and incarceration doesn't need to be our state's main source of revenue. Shouldn't we be investing in our people, or is that up to the younger generations too? The next comment comes from Michael Beeson, Dr. Michael Beeson, who says to risk our only water source for Shreveport for no reason except greed and stupidity is unbelievable. Any council person that supports this would do so only for an obvious kickback of some type. There could be no other reason. If this insane proposal should pass, I suggest the next money-making scheme should be storage of nuclear waste products under the homes of council persons that voted for the obscene proposal. And those are the comments.
Strong words.
Yes.
Well, so I'm glad that we took this opportunity to hear the public, who are our bosses. There were a lot of urges for us not to vote for Resolution 51 in there. Before we discuss it more, maybe we should hear from our visitors, and then we can make some have a little discussion about the issues that they've raised. So.
Commissioner Young, as you call up the visitors, I just want to, I need to just document that the certificate for teleconference is attached. So
great.
There's no action needed, just needed to say it.
Okay, terrific. Certificate attached. Okay, so we have 3 visitors. 2 of them are high school students from our esteemed Caddo Magnet High School. And they are, I think, the leaders of the petition that we received. So I invited them to come and say a few words to us about what motivated them. And so please, whichever of you would like to speak first, go ahead. Is it Gretchen or Gus?
I can speak first.
Okay, Gus, thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gus Demarath, and I'm a senior at Caddo Magnet High School. So the people of Shreveport get their water from one location, and that's Cross Lake. We trust that the city handles the water well, checks for chemicals, makes sure it's clean, and generally cares for it, right? We trust that the city puts its people before private corporations, before economic opportunity, and before profit. We can only trust that because we do not have the chance to voice our concerns in a public hearing. When there is an oil spill in Louisiana, there's only a small chance of it getting cleaned up. So the database kept by the State Department of Natural Resources said that since the 1990s, only 12 of the 137 properties with state-verified contamination have been properly cleaned up. That's not very comforting for people my age growing up here. So contaminated drinking water affects everything from cancer rates to a kid's cognitive function. You see, oil drilling would exponentially increase the risk of contaminating the water supply of around 200,000 people, and we do not want that. I've talked to my friends, and they do not want it either. The input of the public, especially the youth like me, is vital for the government. We live here. We will be the ones drinking the water from the tap. I drink it every day. We see the youth of the city are the ones who would inherit the contaminated water. We know Shreveport is our home, and all we've ever seen is more wells and a stagnant economy. We watch our local public officials bargain our health as if they aren't the ones drinking the water. No wonder my friends are angry. No wonder they're disappointed. And no wonder they want to get out of Shreveport. We urge you to consider the risks that come with a decision to allow for oil exploration today. Do not think about the economic gains, but the lives ruined by the possibility of a technological malfunction, which are all too frequent in this industry. Think about how it would affect your constituency, and think about the people of this city. In the end, we drill all over Northwest Louisiana, but we only get our water from one source. Now, what will you do if your water is contaminated? Tell me. See, I don't want to see you getting bottled water at the store if it is contaminated, because I'm going to have to be drinking it. I can't afford to buy bottled water. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Gretchen.
Thank you, Gus Demarath. Gretchen Upton, would you like to make your public comment now, please?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gretchen Upton. I'm 17. I'm going to my senior year at Caddo High School as well. I want to say that I couldn't believe it when I heard about these projects, but I could. It's all too familiar to us. The prioritization of money for a few over the safety of many is something I've seen for as long as I have lived in the South. And always I've been told that for my voice to matter, I had to be older and richer and smarter. Decisions like this are kept away from us, and for the most part, our parents have been silent. You want to say it's not dangerous, that because of this long-standing history of oil and gas development, that these new projects are just a drop in an ocean. But if we look at it this way, you all tell my generation not to vape or to smoke because God only knows how harmful that is for our bodies. So if I tell you I smoke half a pack of cigarettes a day or half a Juul pod a day, why not make it a full pack, a full pod? Why not two? Why ever stop? Because we know that smoking more and smoking longer increases the risk to our health. We know it's not worth it. We know, too, that the more pipelines we have, the more will leak. The longer they stay there, the higher the chance of failure. The more chemicals we pump into the air and into the water, the more people die, and I'm scared. And I'm wondering, Commission, if you all know how much money these projects will bring, and I'm wondering if any amount will be enough for you to sell our well-being. Adrian Perkins came to my school just this past year and asked everyone gathered in the auditorium if we wanted to stay here after we graduated, and the room was silent, and it was still. I love this city and I want to stay. I love the music and the art and the crazy local politics, and I know how many of my friends feel the same, but we can't be expected to stay in a city that doesn't love us back enough just to keep our water clean, to prioritize the brighter futures that you all want us to build. I hope you all received the letter that we wrote, which after circulating for just a day, gathered over 100 signatures from young people in the city who are afraid. And I hope if you have children, grandchildren, or you live in the city, have to pay taxes in the city, have to drink the water in the city, I hope you can put aside the learned priorities of money and capital that this industry relies on you to bring to votes like this, and that you can decide just to hear us loudly and clearly as people who aren't often given a voice. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gretchen Upton. Those were powerful words. Okay, so we have one more visitor who I think is going to talk to us about what the group of commenters are interested in getting out of this meeting. She is also a graduate of Magnet High School and went to the school at the same time as me. We were both class of 2001. Her name is Frances Kelly. Frances, are you ready to make your public comment?
Yes. I wanted to thank you and the other committee members and also the full commission for allowing us to have this opportunity to talk about this. I know that it's a little bit complicated legally and politically, But I think that the point that Commissioner Burrell made at the meeting about this being the only place to for public comments is really key. I did call the Department of Natural Resources to ask them what the public participation process was for decisions to do drilling around next to the lake. And they told me that there is no public participation process. So really, we are dependent on y'all as our local government, our local representatives, to try to create a space for the public to be able to voice their concerns about this. And I think that, one of the things that we would like to see that was talked about in the letter that the youth sent is to have this subcommittee hold a public hearing, invite the governor, the Commissioner of Conservation, the Bureau of Land Management to send representatives to that meeting. Obviously, it would be on Zoom, so that the public really does have a chance to weigh in on this decision. We know that it's not all in your hands, but you do have the power to call for a public hearing and to allow for that to happen. And I think it's really important for y'all to think about your role in this as local government, and that Louisiana is sort of really unique as a state in that in every other state that has the oil and gas industry as a major part of their economy, there is a split in terms of the power where the state oversees the drilling process, but the local government does have some oversight over land use policies and where wells can be placed. And it varies from state to state how much power is split between the state and local government, but Louisiana is the only state where all of the power is with the state, and you guys really also do not have a say. In the city of Shreveport did in its charter have the power to protect the watershed, but that was taken away through a lawsuit because of the state law that says all of the power was Department of Natural Resources, and there is no public participation process. And I think it's also really a matter of fairness, because if you look at any other industry that either pollutes or has the potential to pollute, they are permitted through the Department of Environmental Quality, and there is a public participation process. There is a place for public comment. There is a way to have a public hearing. And it's really unfair that this one industry is singled out to have this special protection where local governments and citizens have no ability to weigh in. So we're asking you to have this process to invite those players to come. They're not required by law to listen to the public on this, but I think that an invitation from the commission saying, our citizens are concerned and they would like to have their voices heard, and we are having a hearing, and we would like you to send representatives to attend, because it doesn't just affect the property owners who are drilling on this, it affects everyone who drinks the water, and that is 200,000 people. So that would be, I think, the way to think about this. It's about your authority. It's about how do citizens get a chance to weigh into the process, and what can be done to allow for public participation as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis Kelly. My understanding of the requests of the commenters is that we hold a public, is that the commission perhaps pass a resolution asking or inviting representatives from the governor's office, the Office of Conservation, the Bureau of Land Management, to a public hearing that we would schedule for some time after the commission meeting that votes for that invitation, to discuss expanding public input in the drilling process in Louisiana. So I would like to,
Chairman,
yes, Mr. Epperson.
I'd like to comment when you finish, please.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Ms. Kelly is absolutely right. Of course, Louisiana is strongly controlled by the oil and gas industry. It is now and always has been. Part of my tenure as being a commissioner, I've always been an advocate on behalf of the situation with the oil and gas drilling. Whereas, they come in, they offer the lease bonuses, there's no public disclosure as to what amounts they offer who. Everything is very oil and gas friendly. And oftentimes our constituents get letters and they call me and say, Commissioner, they're having a public hearing about this drilling in my tract, and it's down in Lafayette, which is grossly unfair. Grossly unfair. Who do I complain? And everything is controlled by the Department of Natural Resources. Ms. Kelly and those that young man and that young lady that made their comments today are very timely. This is an issue that is well overdue. There has not been the will or the wherewithal to challenge that context. And prior to the COVID-19 coming in, it was part of my agenda, which I did list on my election flyer, that we need to amend, update, reevaluate the oil, gas, fracking, and drilling ordinances of Caddo Parish and the state of Louisiana. In this day and age with the modern technology, just as though we are meeting on Zoom, we could very well have the same thing when they have those public hearings about a tract of land they send to certain citizens up here in Shreveport, Louisiana, Northwest Louisiana, talking about holding a public hearing down in Lafayette or Lake Charles, knowing very well that those individuals cannot make those meetings to participate in them. So I would be highly amenable to this committee making a motion to refer to the body to the wills of Ms. Kelly and those young people as far as the request that they made today.
Thank you, Mr. Epperson. I would second that motion if you had actually made the motion.
Well, I spoke, prior to the motion, so
Oh, okay. Well, so I'll make the motion that you suggest in that case. Okay.
Did you want to put it in a palatable form so we'll understand? And I'll second.
Sure.
I'm on the board too. I was actually.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the board. Please go ahead, Mr. Chavez.
No. I was actually. I loved what she had to say, and Commissioner Epperson followed it up very eloquently with a very obvious solution that this committee needs to draft a resolution. We urge a lot of government bodies, sometimes for various reasons, but this one is a solid, concrete reason that we would like to see a resolve to send to the state legislator. I think, Henry, you're on this call as well? Or was it Donna Fraser?
He's muted.
Okay.
Henry is muted.
Okay. Henry got the verbiage.
I am. I'm here.
So basically what we need to put together is, my motion is, I would like us to draft a resolution urging the state legislator to figure out a way to where we can have participation from local citizens in any oil and gas endeavors in the future. I'll leave it vague enough to say that, and Henry, you draft up something that we can formulate and craft to better get what the citizens want, and we'll invite these young people who I think it's absolutely fabulous that they're on this call, and I love what they have to say in their engagement in this. And if I can get a second, we'll go ahead and get the full body.
I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Chavez, for expressing that so well. Are you finished speaking? I see Commissioner Johnson also wants to speak.
Yes. I think there's a bit of confusion. I don't know if it's the way that the resolution was worded. I think the parish only got involved in this because there's a parish road and the right of way within the tract of property that needs to be, that they want to put the well on. So the majority of the land is owned by private citizens and not the parish. And so the well will actually sit on a private citizen's parcel of land instead of the parishes. The parish is just, like I said, is only the road that goes through there. So basically by us saying that we don't want to do this or do that, this means that the parish will lose out on any potential bonus money. But the majority of the private property owners have already said that they good with having a well on that tract of land that abuts the Cross Lake, then there's really nothing that the parish is able to do at this point, other than you just lose out on the bonus money, and then you'll start collecting money as the well produces down the road. And I think the citizens' input has been misled or miscalculated by in which how things have been interpreted to them, that the parish is in control of this well being put in place. And that's far from being the truth, when there's only about 43 acres in the whole entire tract that the parish actually owns, and the other 3,800 is owned by private citizens. So I appreciate the youth getting involved and being a part of this process. That's wonderful. I'd like to see them get more involved. But I just think that at this point, we're talking about something that has more influence on the private citizen than it does the actual public government. And I think that we need to get that storyline straight, so that people just don't think that, well, the parish is greedy and trying to do this and trying to do that, and which is actually the private citizens that are basically the oil companies that went to them and basically said, well, you know, can we utilize mineral rights? We want to drill a well on this tract of land. And, you know, throughout the parish, many private citizens have done that in the past. And so it's sort of like, you know, you can drill it everywhere except for right here. But then those people who own property there are saying, well, I don't have a problem with you drilling it right here if you're not going to be that close to the lake. And so that's what I think we need to make sure that we know exactly where the drill is. I think Public Works was supposed to be trying to find out some potential locations, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw Robert Glass is on, and he could possibly give us some more information. But that's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I would like to say so there do seem to be two issues here. I think that as regards Resolution 51, the Commission does not have any authority or influence over whether drilling will take place, and so I would still recommend moving that resolution forward for a yes vote by the Commission. However, the second issue is to call for more public input generally going forward, and this resolution just seems to have alerted people to their sort of voicelessness in that area. So I think perhaps we could do both and do our normal housekeeping and collect whatever money we're going to get by passing 51, but then also have another resolution that encourages this participation. And I think you stated that very clearly, Commissioner Johnson. Thank you. Commissioner Chavez, do you want to speak again?
Commissioner Epperson.
Sorry, I had that on mute. I do.
Commissioner. Commissioner
do.
Chavez.
Yes, sir. To Henry, if the parish declines participation via this resolution, is that going to send this deal back to the drawing board, and they will have to negotiate a different deal with landowners?
No, sir.
Okay.
And actually, if I could, I would like to, for both the committee and the individual citizens that are listening and participating, there's two processes involved here. The process that this resolution is about is asking the State Mineral Board to put out requests for bids to lease the parish lands involved, the 30-something or 40-something acres involved, with regard to the granting of a lease to the oil and gas companies. So this doesn't tie into any drilling of a well or permitting of the drilling of a well or anything like that. That's actually a separate process under the Office of Conservation. What we're doing here is under the Office of the Mineral Board. They're all part of the Department of Natural Resources, but they are distinct, separate processes.
Thank you.
So Henry, it's your legal opinion that if we were to vote no on Resolution 51, The only thing that would take place would be the lack of upfront bonus paid out to the parish of Caddo.
It actually would be twofold. Number one, if the parish chose not to lease its interest, the parish, number one, would not get a lease bonus, which is, of course, a check that you get when you sign the lease. There's not any contingencies on it or any conditions on it. The other piece is that the parish would then also have a royalty that it was entitled to from the oil and gas company from the first production, from the beginning of production from the well. If the parish chose not to do this, what would happen is that the parish would be considered an unleased interest, and it would only be once the oil and gas company had recovered their cost of drilling the well that the parish would have any entitlement to funds. And given the nature of Haynesville shale wells, that would be several years down the road, and there's no guarantee that the parish would get $1.
Thank you, Henry. So obviously this brings to light a different scenario. However, I think the original motion that we made still stands, and I'd like to vote on that, and I will be voting yes on that. And then
Me too. Let's have a vote, shall we? Mr. Epperson, would you like to speak before we vote? Oh,
I think you all have taken care of it. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, I would like to make one small amendment to our resolution in a motion. Can I do that now?
Sure.
Okay, I think we should also make sure that it includes an invitation to a public hearing that we'll schedule for a certain time after the resolution passes to the to representatives from conservation and DNR and BLM. Is that possible, Henry?
Commissioner, can I suggest that be done as two separate votes, because the resolution as drafted is a resolution authorizing us to for us to go to the mineral board to conduct the public bid for the lease of it.
Oh, wait, so are we talking about resolution 51 right now, or the motion in the motion that we were about to vote on about the public input?
You want me to take this question? Henry's taking the other one. Henry, we're not working on ordinance 51 currently. We're working on.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought there was a motion. I thought somebody had moved.
We're not on.
Okay,
we're not on res 51 yet.
Okay, all right.
I think. So for the motion that represents the interests of Francis Kelly, Gus Demarath, and Gretchen Upton, and the other commenters, I would just like to add the invitation to a public hearing, and we can decide on the date for the public hearing. And it's to conservation, DNR, and BLM representatives.
Who is DNR and BLM?
Bureau of Land Management is a federal agency that I think has a little bit of interest in this area, and also DNR is the Department of Natural Resources here in the state. Is that right?
I'm confused about the reference to the Bureau of Land Management, because that their only interest would be any federal lands that were involved.
So is there any my understanding, well, so from the comments I thought that there was some federal interest in there. Francis Kelly, did you indicate that?
Sorry, yeah,
Perhaps
can you
we
hear
could
me?
ascertain that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like Commissioner Johnson said, a lot of this is private land, but there is parish land, city land, state land, and land that the federal government does not own but has the mineral servitude in. And again, those are all like different pieces of it. So the Bureau of Land Management is also going through a process of deciding whether or not to lease their lands. Theirs are actually even closer to the lake than the parish lands. And they also did not have a public hearing, nor did they decide to do a full environmental impact statement. So they are like yet another one of these government agencies that's not really allowing for good public participation. Y'all are the ones that are closest to the people, and obviously are the citizens are most able to voice their concerns to. so them as well as I would say the governor, because really, you know, the state has a lot of the authority here, and that all falls to him.
Okay, and so let's add the governor, DNR, conservation, and BLM as invitees to a public hearing. Attorney Bernstein, is that okay?
I have that, certainly. That'd be fine.
Okay, terrific. Okay, then I think perhaps we're ready to vote.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, we are voting, or just so everybody voting is clear, I'll take the roll call, and we are voting on the resolution asking to, or we're voting on draft a resolution urging the state legislature to consider the local citizen input and future decisions allowing local input, and then including an invitation to a public hearing with the members that were described a moment ago. So that's the general motion that we're voting on right now.
Generally, yes. I think perhaps also, instead of just urging the state legislature, it sounds like the governor might have some direct authority over this. Could we also urge him? Great.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, I have that.
Okay, terrific. Okay, that clears it up. Okay, Mr. Clerk, will you roll call vote us?
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson is not present. Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus is not present, and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
That motion passes with 3 in support and 2 absent.
Okay, great. So I think the other thing that we should say as a committee, I think it may be that we should acknowledge that Resolution 51 should go toward the to the full body for with our recommendation of passage on the condition that that drilling does take place, which is a separate issue from whether the public has input on drilling generally. So is that something that it would be appropriate for this committee to move?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, when you say that about drilling taking place, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking there.
Well, so what I mean is, like, if there's going to be drilling, we might as well say yes to getting the money for it.
Correct, and in fact, there's no guarantee that we would get a bid. That has happened in the past. We have gone through this process, and sometimes bids are submitted and sometimes they're not submitted.
Okay. So the chair would be happy to hear a motion relating to Resolution 51. Mr. Epperson?
Just maybe a point of information.
Sure.
Okay, in our last meeting relative to Resolution 51, we voted to do what? Remand this to the Natural Resource Committee. Am I
yes,
correct?
That's right. That's
okay.
Right.
So therefore, I guess it would be okay for this body to make a motion that that the committee recommended favorable, that the body would approve Resolution 51 based upon the information that we received.
I would make such a motion.
Second.
Okay. I don't care to speak on it any further. Would anyone else like to comment? One of the commissioners? Okay, Mr. Clerk, would you vote us?
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
And then Lazarus and Jackson are absent, and Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with 3 out of 5 and 2 being absent.
Okay, terrific.
I'd like to make another motion, please.
Go for it, Mr. Chavez.
If we can direct Dr. Wilson to have Crystal put together a presentation just outlining exactly what's going on within Ordinance 51, to put a press conference out, because at the end of the day, information is obviously powerful, and right now what's going on is there's a lot of people with misinformation, as Commissioner Johnson stated. So I'd like the facts out there on the line so that we know what's going forward. And I do appreciate the young people getting involved, which has given us a clear, defined role and goal But for this specific ordinance 51, some facts need to be put out there from a PR standpoint.
I'll second that motion. Would anyone else like to speak on it, Mr. Epperson?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, would you roll call vote us, please?
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Epperson,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Lazarus, Commissioner Jackson, and Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes with 3 yeas and 2 absent.
All right, I think that may conclude our business for today. Does anyone else have anything that they want to discuss?
Move for adjournment.
All right, I believe we should adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone.